All right, welcome to Gamers Station, and today I've got something that really requires a mouse to really play properly. It's called Act of Aggression. Now, it sounds quite violent, but what is Act of Aggression? Well, Act of Aggression is the first proper classic real-time strategy that we've had in a long time that is not StarCraft. Now, if you are familiar with the Command & Conquer series, particularly Command & Conquer Generals, you're gonna see this game and see it as somewhat similar, but the Command & Conquer Generals sequel was in production and was cancelled, so everyone was really disappointed about that. So Act of Aggression is sort of taking the place of Command & Conquer Generals, and as far as I can tell, the game is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it is very, very solid, and a lot of people are loving the game. So let's jump into Act of Aggression and see what it's all about.
Cause I am already gunning for the top of fly me from making something out of nothing. Look me in the eyes, I am not afraid. I'm just living the dream, the shoes are really suede. And I'm already made, and I'm already paid. I ain't even broke a sweat, I can do this all day.
So, what's the gameplay like in Act of Aggression, and what's good about it? Well, it's pretty much like a classic real-time strategy. They often say that the golden age of strategy sort of died out at the end of the 90s and maybe the early 2000s, and it sort of gave way to a big influx of first-person shooters. But recently we have been seeing a sort of comeback to the strategy genre, and Act of Aggression is one of those titles which could sort of kickstart the genre back in, well, it could breathe some life into it if it's successful. And so far, from what I can tell, people are really enjoying the game. In terms of gameplay, it is like Command & Conquer Generals. It's set in the near future. It's set in the 2020s, and mostly around 2025. And so technology is just slightly ahead of where we are today. And you've got three factions, the Chimera, you've got the US military, and the Cartel. And the Chimera is sort of like this peacekeeping United Nations organization. The Cartel is sort of this hidden underground syndicate, and the US military is the US military. And these three factions have vested interests. Now, in terms of the single player, the campaign mode it's all right. The missions themselves are fun. The storyline is so-so. I mean, it's not the most engaging storyline. You're not going to be remembering too many names, but it's enough to tie the campaign together. So you've got 10 Chimera faction missions, and then we've got 5 Cartel missions. So you've got 15 campaign missions in total. And honestly, the lore and the history and what's going on in the game is actually very interesting, but the storytelling is somewhat subpar, but it's okay. Gameplay itself is absolutely fun. It's amazing. All about combined arms, where you're sort of mixing your infantry, your light vehicles, your heavy vehicles, your artillery, planes, helicopters, all sorts of stuff. And it really does have a big emphasis on combining these different arms together so they can work together. So for example, artillery has a massive range. It can shoot halfway across the map, but only if you can see something it would be any useful. So often you would send helicopters to scout the forward positions and then shell it with artillery. And this mixing of units really does play very well. The three factions themselves are distinctly different. The US military is quite heavy and quite resilient. The Cartel is more high-tech, and they have a lot of helicopters and fast-moving units and tricks and stuff like that. And the Chimera is sort of a mid-range, where it's sort of very versatile, very adaptable to the different situations. So these three factions being different is always very nice. It's never nice when you have different factions and it's sort of, they're all pretty much the same. So after the single player, we've got the multiplayer. The multiplayer scene is very much alive. Once the game released, you're easily at peak times getting 1,500 to 2,000 players online at the same time. It's not an amazing amount, but for a strategy game, that's plenty to have some enough games being hosted and stuff like that. And even at off-peak times, you'll easily get at least 500 players online. So there's still plenty of games going on. So the multiplayer scene is very much alive. And in terms of a competitive title, the factions seem pretty balanced, and it does require a lot of strategy, and it's a lot less micro-intensive. It's not like StarCraft where you have to click really fast, but it's more about positioning your troops and utilizing the different tools you have to your advantage. And of course, besides all the units, you have super weapons, and each faction has their own super weapon as well. So overall, the game is very, very solid, but it feels like it should be polished up a little bit, just a little bit. And then it could be a really long-lasting title. Like currently there's no map maker and stuff like that. So If they add in a few more features, this balancing stuff out, and if they continue to develop it, I think Active Aggression could be a really strong, lasting title. So, is Active Aggression for you? Well, if you like classic real-time strategies, then you're going to love this one. If you like base building, resource collection, building units, and all of that, then that's going to be great. Now, I did mention that there's a heavy emphasis on combined arms. Now, one problem with the game is there's no, or at least currently, there's no tutorial to the game. So the only way to learn is to sort of play the campaign, but the campaign doesn't really fill you in on all the details on how to combine, like using your jets to gain line of sight for your artillery. It doesn't really explain that very well, so it does require some experimentation and practice. So if you're the kind of person to jump into a game and just start playing and really learn everything, then you're gonna figure it out through trial and error. Though if you're the kind of person which really likes a nicely organized tutorial, you might struggle a little bit, especially towards the end of the campaign and in online multiplayer play where people can absolutely destroy you. But in general, Active Aggression is an amazing title, and if it is a success, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be, then that's going to lead to more and more real-time strategies coming back. So I think next year we're going to be seeing a lot more real-time strategies, and it's going to be a sort of revival of the golden age of RTS, which is going to be absolutely fantastic because we need some RTS out there besides StarCraft. And StarCraft's great, but we need some variety. Alright, so before I go, I'm going to thank our wonderful hosts here, Fishy Coffee at Bukit Jalil. They've got some lovely looking cakes and food and coffee over there, and I'm definitely going to go try some out after this.
I won't stop until my heart stops. They don't have to force me to breathe. Until that day there's no sleep. I want the world to know.
Big shout out to Second Sunday for hosting us here today. It's been an absolute pleasure to come and check out all of the gadgets. Why don't you come and check out the store for yourself, because we could be here again next week, same time, same place, for a brand new episode of Gadget Nation, all the latest in the world of technology, gadgets, and news. Anyhow, I'm just gonna kick back and enjoy my drink. You can also find us online on the Astro Awani website, so everything will be posted there. Until then, see you next time.